Hello, everybody. My name is John Maxwell, SolarWinds, and I want to welcome you to this webcast. Our focus today is the end-to-end virtualization monitoring and management solutions that we have. And what we want to focus on is really the different aspects of virtualization management from both a VM or sysadmin perspective and a DBA perspective. I'm responsible for the database performance management solutions product marketing here at SolarWinds. And joining me is my coworker, Jared Hensel. Jared, you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody. I'm John's coworker, as he elegantly said. I currently work on the other database product we have as well. Prior to that, systems administrator for 15 plus years. Database Performance Analyzer was the last SolarWinds product I actually bought as a consumer about 6 months before I started here at SolarWinds. So, been in the trenches.
Great, thanks. And Jared will be covering the first part of our presentation and our Virtualization Manager solution, and I'll be covering Database Performance Analyzer. That said, we have a couple quick polls that we want to do. So we'll throw the first one up there. So if you could go ahead while I'm talking about the agenda and some other stuff. So what we're going to do here is just give you kind of an overview and, just kind of give you a primer on the Orion platform and what allows you to use products like DPA and VMAN in conjunction to have a holistic view of your virtualized environment. And then we'll go specifically into VMAN, Virtualization Manager. Jared will cover that aspect. He'll give you an overview of the product and a great demo. I'll give you a quick little overview of the architecture and how Database Performance Analyzer works and then a demo. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. And so if you notice there's a Q&A button on WebEx that you can submit questions to us. And what we'll do is once I've finished my demo, then we'll just, again, open up and we'll start reading through those questions. One of the drivers behind this webcast was really just the ubiquitous nature of virtualization. I mean, Gartner published a study last year that said between 90 and 95% of all servers were now virtualized. And that made me wonder about, well, what's the impact on databases? And so SolarWinds, we did our own survey via our THWAC community, and with some very interesting data. I'm going to actually create a white paper about this, but the net was we found that 87% of the SolarWinds customer base has virtualized databases. So those databases are running in a VM. And what was even more remarkable were the high amounts of virtualized databases. In fact, roughly a quarter of the respondents had 100% of their databases running in a VM. So that's why I thought it would be very timely to do this webcast and talk about our solutions and how they integrate through Orion. What I'll do right now is let me turn it over to you, Jared, so you can kick off the VMAN part, and then before I start my section, I'll go over the poll results. So Jared, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, so a little bit about SolarWinds and some of the words John used. Obviously, he talked about Orion, he talked about VMAN, he talked about DPA, but as a whole, this is kind of a riff on Gartner's ITOM, how they define ITOM. This is kind of how we define it, where we've got, application bucketed into just straight application. We've got it separated into database. Then we've got the infrastructure side, obviously your server, storage, and network management, and then security and ITSM. But really, you can see, from your traditional on-premises to, as John was saying, to virtualization, to even IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, we have a number of products or a number of portfolio products that cut across this whole thing. So what we're going to, again, focus on is kind of that top application side with a little bit on the, I would say the virtualization kind of blends in between on the infrastructure and storage side of the house. So, again, we've got the product we're going to talk about is VMAN. Obviously, we've got some quotes here. So, SolarWinds VMAN has advanced reporting capabilities and customizable dashboards. We work directly with VMware, Hyper-V, and we're starting to get some support for Nutanix in there. So again, we are working with the major hypervisors. We also integrate with AWS and Azure, so we can bring in cloud providers as well. So again, what is VMAN doing that I can't do with vCenter or I can't do Hyper-V? I mean, obviously, it's holistically looking at all your servers across multiple hypervisors and allowing you to monitor and alert on their performance. We don't care where your clusters are, where your vCenters are. We can bring them all in. So if you've got an east and a west and a north and a south and a New York and a Los Angeles and everywhere in between, we can aggregate all of that information into our system. We basically allow you to address virtual machine issues more efficiently because you are seeing across all your clusters, all your virtual machines. You can obviously tie this into other SolarWinds products to see further out, but we also, just from a virtualization standpoint, we're letting you know when there's latency issues, when there's ballooning or swapping. Virtualization is a catch-22. I mean, it's great that you can put all sorts of things on a single box, but it also stinks that you can put all sorts of things on a single box. So you have to be aware of what your neighbors are doing, and you can't just basically continue to play hot potato. So again, and it allows the multiple hypervisors. Again, we support VMware and Hyper-V. I mean, VMware owns 80-somewhat% of the market, Hyper-V's there, and then obviously Nutanix. So again, Acropolis, and obviously they're supporting VMware and Hyper-V running on top of those. So, we allow you to troubleshoot multiple vendors in a single environment. You'll see this quickly on the demo. You can view dedupe and compression and view more capacity statistics from a vSAN point of view. Obviously, bringing in the software-defined storage, and view whole cluster health and see where your bottlenecks are really happening from a virtualization point of view, and then tying that back to, as John's going to show later on, is the database side. Because again, if you put a single host and I'm going to put 10 VMs on there and they're all SQL servers and they all need to do these crazy things all at the same time, and oh, by the way, they're running on some spinning, 15K SCSI drives in a RAID 10 or something like that, again, you're going to run into issues, and you're going to have to see this from the virtualization standpoint because you're just not going to pick that up from a database standpoint. We give you predictions, allow you to predict CPU and memory, and give you recommendations on those, saying, hey, here's the 30-day trend we've looked at. We think you need to move things around. Here's where you've got an opportunity to regain resources. This is where you need to play. I use the 3-card Monty. You need to shuffle your deck around a little bit. You're able to run modeling scenarios to show, what things may look like in the future if I add hosts or add VMs. And then really, honestly, half of this is finding out the orphan stuff, the stuff that's been turned off that nobody knows about, but still consuming disk. Or, hey, I went in there and somebody spun it up and gave it 32 cores and a terabyte of RAM or some crazy numbers like that just because they could. And now they come back in there and you got to go, oh, this is way over provision. We can pull a lot of this back. And then really just, again, this is helping you pinpoint those issues so you can expedite the troubleshooting process, getting everybody on the same page. You're not trying to necessarily finger point, but, you're all on the same IT team. You may have different disciplines, but at the end of the day, you're part of the team responsible for delivering the application in a timely manner. So with that said, I'm just going to cut over to the demo. So let me go share my screen 2. And so right now, I'm actually on this is the summary screen. So this is VMAN. When you log in here, this is, again, by the way, this all can be accessed via oriondemo.solarwinds.com. And all these products, you just kind of log in, the credentials are already there, just hit next, and you can come in there and play with all these things to your heart's content. But you can see a number of products, basically our networking and our flow and our application. I just basically started at the virtualization. So right here, this is the VMAN summary screen. And again, I'm already looking at VMware and Hyper-V. I can actually start seeing all my other hypervisors here. I'm bringing in VMware events over here. I can see recommendations. They're already saying, hey, this particular cluster has recommendations. So let's just quickly drill in there. So I actually can get in here, and this is actually telling me that memory utilization has been higher on this threshold, so we need to increase the memory on this actual virtual machine to get benefit of it. Here's one where it's been lower, so we can actually decrease this one to reclaim some resources. Same here. Again, we've got different strategies: host storage, host performance, workload balancing, and VM sizing. Again, most of these are VM sizing issues. So again, you can completely see that this is going to give you that tribal knowledge, that expert in a box type stuff that you can come in here and see everything that's going on. Again, we've got some charts over here on maintenance mode, and this is all customizable. You can come in here and put whatever charts you want in here. You can really customize this to your needs. So it's easy to really see the benefit of this product. So what we're going to do, though, is drill into a virtual machine here. We're going to drill in here. Oh, wrong vCenter. We're going to come over here. We're going to go into the west one, and we're going to drill into this bad boy right over here. So again, I'm drilling into my vCenter, my clusters, my data stores, all the way into, now I can actually see all the way into the virtual machine. So I'm going to click into this virtual machine real quick and get in here. And again, since this is a demo environment, we've got our server product in here. So you're going to actually see some application data in here as well. I'll go over to the virtualization screen in a second, but again, here I'm seeing all sorts of information on my virtual machine. I can see CPU. I can see exactly how this is grouped up, what cluster, what data store it's on, what volumes it's accessing, anything along those lines. But I can come down here. I mean, I can see all sorts of goodness of capacity, run out dates, things along those lines. But if I scroll down, again, I know this one's running SQL, obviously by the name, but I actually now can see that there's a SQL application. I'll click that in a link in a second. But what I want to do is show you, just from the virtualization standpoint, as John was saying, is we see a significant number of machines that are running virtualized. So you have to look at that VM a little bit differently. And that's where this screen, this is what you get with VMAN, is different, that you actually can see the CPU on this VM, but also its host. Same with memory. So again, you're looking at that parent-child relationship at all times. So you can again go, hey, here's the VM on this latency, here's the VM, here's the network on the host. Again, so I can see, hey, maybe this VM is not doing anything, not consuming any more memory, but the host is. What is going on? So I can drill into the parent host and go, hey, why is this consuming all sorts of IOPS, CPU, compute, whatever it is? It gives you that parent-child relationship that is vital to seeing what's going on. Another quick way to analyze this data is we've got this cool tool called Performance Analyzer. So I just right-clicked on that. You can obviously open it up. I just didn't want to leave the window. But again, here, I came in here and I can now see, again, I'm seeing this from a hypervisor point of view. I'm seeing CPU and memory. I'm seeing parent-child things. Again, I can come in here and start dragging and dropping. Here, you can see, oh, well, I want to go look at the host. Let's pull some host metrics in there. So I want to pull in the average CPU on the host. Boom, now I'm looking at the host. I can see, hey, while this machine spikes up, guess what? It also affected the host. I can come over here and grab things on the data store and look at what's going on not the data store, on the data center. See what's going on there. I can look at the storage. I can look at a number of different things in here to see any of these metrics. I can pull over disk size, things like that. Again, I don't expect the disk size to change in this particular example, but I can come in here and pull in all these statistics, and John will show it a little bit more as well. As I also now have, since this is all integrated, I can start pulling in database metrics. So again, I can pull in the incident metrics, and this is where this platform is super vital, successful, ubiquitous, is that I can pull in metrics across multiple things. I can pull in my database wait times. I can pull in my database status. Again, John will show these kind of more on the database side, but again, I started at a virtual machine and now I'm pulling in database metrics. So again, I can come over here. I can change my time frame if I want to go back a week, and see, hey, what's going on? Again, I can layer in more things in here. Oh, I can actually see that going back a week, I actually had some, as John's going to show later, anomaly detection issues. That is replicated in here. So going back, what is this, about 5 days ago, the database was reporting abnormal activity, basically some wait times were not where they were supposed to be. And I can drill down all the way and start looking into the physical and virtual layer and say, hey, was this because of VMware? Am I having a high runtime or wait times through the roof because I decided to run a semantic deep scan and then back up the server and then run a disk defrag and all these other things that may drive some storage issues crazy on VMware? Or, hey, I decided to spin up a QA farm of servers on the same host, anything crazy like that. I can come in here and start correlating all those issues back to what's going on. So back over here, I went over here again, and again, this is just the summary screen again. So I'm going to go back to the actual summary screen and scroll down. And again, this is, again, you're going to get a little more data here than you normally would because we have the server product in here. But most of the CPU, virtual machine stuff, what kind of the makeup, your network stuff, that's all going to come through. Really, it's some of the application stuff. But what I'm ultimately going to do is use this to jump over to the actual SQL Server itself. Again, I can click that. Again, this is some of the server side of the house where I'm seeing some of this data. But just to show that everything is all stitched together, I mean, I can come over here, all in this one interface is go, okay, hey, I looked at the virtualization layer, now I looked at the, briefly poked around the application. But again, now all of a sudden I'm looking at this is DPA data. So again, these things are all getting integrated together where I did not have to manually stitch SQL Server instance A to virtual host B to cluster C, all that stuff. This is all seamlessly stitched together. And again, from at this point, I actually can jump into actual DPA. But real quick before I turn it over to John, if I click that performance analysis, where exactly I came over here and looked at it from a hypervisor point of view. And again, I've got many more stats I can put in here. Go back over here and go, let's go look at it now from a database point of view. What it's going to automatically do is start loading up the database metrics because that's the way I came in. I can come over here again. You can see the database instance. I can come over here and start telling, hey, show me more things related to it. But again, now I'm starting to get my virtual layer in here, my application. I can drag those metrics over, but it's really powerful where you have different jumping off points into the product. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing real quick. I could totally go on for this for hours, but we have to get it back over to John. So I'm going to stop showing. It should be on the screen. And now I'm going to make John the presenter again.
All right. Thanks, Jared. That was a great overview. You can see that Jared's been around for a while. He's been a long-term SolarWinds employee, and he really knows the solutions. I did want to share with you some of the polling information, and it sounds like everything that I was talking about earlier as far as the percentage of virtualization as I'm preaching to the choir. It's a little bit based on today's audience. 75% of you have your servers virtualized. Percentage of database instances running to VM, 75% or more, so very heavily virtualized group here. The main two databases that are virtualized are Oracle and SQL Server. No shock there. So let's go into a quick overview of DPA, and then I can go into the demo. DPA, again, integrates as Jared showed into Orion. It's a cross-platform solution, so we provide key functionality like the machine learning anomaly detection across all the various flavor database platforms that are out there. 24/7 down to the second data collection. We keep down to the second granularity for 30 days, which is pretty incredible. You can have that level of fidelity from a historical perspective, and can even keep data up to 5 years if you want. The architecture of DPA is very elegant. We're installed at over 8,000 accounts. We're monitoring over 100,000 database instances. And what we found over the years is that DPA has a consistent 1% or less overhead, which is really important when you look at your monitoring solution. It's very flexible, and it can connect to any database, whether it be in the cloud, in a virtual machine, or on-premise. And again, the product's highly customizable as far as how much data you want to keep out there, et cetera. So let me go into my part of the demo, and I will share my web browser here. And first of all, I want to kind of start off with, this is just, if you're a DPA customer now, the virtualization option in DPA is licensable. So if you log into DPA and you don't see this little virtualization tab here and you can't click on it, that means you're not licensed for the virtualization option, but you can just simply, contact us, and through a license key, you can turn that on. One of the things I wanted to, show is it's very easy to go in and, connect to vSphere. Again, just like the core product, we just need read-only access in there. But when you do click on virtualization, the first thing it's going to do is going to list just all the VMs that are specifically, or excuse me, all the databases that are running in a VM. And then you'll notice when you click now on the database, you get all kinds of new tabs that you don't see normally. And this one I really like because you can go into an instance, and here on this, broad date range that I have, you can layer, your top SQL, weights against, the metrics for the database instance itself. In this case, this is a Postgres instance. Then you'll notice that we have, somewhat, similar to some of the metrics that Jared showed. So we have consistency. We have, at the VM level, right? So things like, vCPU and memory and swapping. Then we get down to the host layer and then the storage. We've also got, some the ability to, when you look at, whether it be, most executed, highest execution time, et cetera, notice that we now layer on additional VM information that you would not get if you don't have this option. I think this is a neat feature. Even though the DPA is really geared towards DBAs, it really gives the DBA some insight into, what's the configuration of the virtual environment that their database instances are running in. So you can look at, specific information to the virtual machine, look at the host. This is kind of cool because you can actually see how many virtual machines are running on that host, and then of course go into the virtual storage, the data stores, and then the physical storage. Now, from a use case perspective, I have this kind of teed up this scenario where it would be very difficult if a DBA is having performance issues with a specific database or a specific query to know if virtualization is having an impact. And that's why the integration with the VM option in DPA is great, because it allows from a DBA perspective to see what's going on. So then you can go talk to your VM or sysadmin, who can then go into VMAN and give you more resources or find out what's happening at the vSphere level. So if I go into this database instance, I can see that I've got some problem times here on March 30th. Our anomaly detection is also is tagged this, and this is the machine learning where it goes in and it will tell you if you deviated from normality. We have our advisors, and then of course blocking, deadlocking, that type of thing. But if I go into a specific query here that is maybe my problem child, I can go in here and I got, wow, yeah, on April 4th, basically from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. on the 5th, I've got a lot of problems here. I can click into that, drill down into that day. I can, look at the specific long pole in the tent. And again, this is what we call our multi-dimensional query analysis. But you notice I can go in and get all of the various statistics, on this query. And what's nice is, in addition to all of the traditional kind of database metrics, I then have metrics that are specific to virtualization. So I scroll down past, a lot of the database specific information, looking at your plans, your blocking, rights and all that kind of stuff. But look what I find here, and notice these little around VM CPU ready. And CPU ready is basically when your VM is ready to get CPU resources and cannot get those from the host. And then co-stop is kind of even worse, because in a multiple vCPU environment, it's the time between when the first vCPU got any resources to the last. And this signifies a badness. But if you notice here, one of the things that we do with the VM option is we actually annotate events that have occurred. And if you look here at 6:30 a.m., we did a vMotion, and we moved this virtual machine from one host to another. And that, along with in-memory snapshots, can be a very bad thing for databases running in virtual instances. So again, you can see here, you get that extra level of information and detail that you wouldn't get without the VM option. So with that, let me go back to the presentation, and what I'd like to do is do two things. One, I would like to throw up another poll, and also at this point, we'd like to get into the Q&A, and so Jared and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. So go ahead and submit any questions that you have. One question I see here is, and Jared, I'll let you answer this because I know you're the guru when it comes to Orion. So how do I license Orion, or how do I use Orion if I have VMAN or DPA? You want to take that question?
Sure. So VMAN is licensed by sockets, not number of CPUs, so sockets. So, how VMware does it, usually, I say swag it out, take your number of hosts and times 2, and that usually works 88% of the time or 99% of the time. So that is how that is licensed. Obviously, the application product I kind of showed is done by host, but yeah, VMAN is number of sockets. So if you've got a 5-node cluster and each one's dual socket, then you need enough to cover 10 sockets. It doesn't matter how many virtual machines, how much RAM, how much CPU, gigahertz, anything like that. It's that. And then obviously, on John's side of the house, the database side is licensed by number of instances, not number of servers. It's an instance count. For the most part on the SQL and I think Oracle side, it's usually a 1-to-1, but I know some of your other databases, you can have multiple database instances on a single server. So, but the database side is instance count.
Right, and I'll add to that. So, Orion basically comes with, any product that you buy, right? So once you buy VMAN or you buy DPA, you have basically Orion, and like with DPA, we have something called the DPA module that will connect and allow you to feed that data that Jared showed into the Orion dashboards. DPA itself is licensed per instance. So let me see here. I got another question is.
I got a couple coming up.
I think, Jared, we got some questions for you on VMAN.
Yeah, it looks like it. Okay.
Yeah, can VMAN be hosted in Azure? Does VMAN exist in a service as a service flavor?
As a service, no. So SolarWinds does not offer VMAN as a SaaS, but we are in Azure Marketplace. So you can obviously go to the Azure Marketplace, hit next, I don't know, whatever, 3 or 4 times, go through their wizard, and essentially it will spin up a Windows server behind the scenes and actually get you up and running, give you the web interface to then run VMAN. So you could either go through the marketplace, we're in Azure, and we're working and being in AWS, but it also, as long as you have operating system access, pretty much you can, or you can spin up a machine, then you can get VMAN. So while we don't have anything in the GCP marketplace, if you want to spin up a Windows box in GCP and then download the VMAN bits and put it in there, by all means go and do that. So really, as long as you can obviously get to Windows, then VMAN can run. And then there was another one. Can you monitor Azure workloads? Yeah, so we can actually tie to the Azure API and pull those in. I didn't demo that, but if you actually go to the public demo and go to Dashboards Cloud, you can now pull in AWS and Azure. What we're going to do is pull in what their API exposes. So you're going to see compute, IOPS, latency, things along those lines. You will not see memory usage because their API does not expose that. But you do get a good sense of, hey, this is the workload is running. Again, you probably want to set alerts differently on there, where normally, I might want to have an alert on a ESX host on premises that, hey, if it is below 80%, let me know, because I want these things to run super dense. I want to know, hey, if it's above 80, that's awesome. 80 to 90, that's my sweet zone. That's where I want to be. Obviously, if you've got machines in Azure, you may want to set an alert, hey, if it's running below 10% or 20%, because again, you're paying for X resources and your virtual machine is not consuming them, Azure is not going to give you a credit for unconsumed IOPS or flops or anything like that. So you want to run those machines a little bit differently. Kind of goes back to another question that came up was, I'd like to see how sprawl recommendations are. So there is a dashboard that basically, if you go to virtualization and then sprawl, it can pull in all your, hey, here are your top 10 compute, top 10 memory. And so it'll basically show you over and under allocated and give you a recommendation. And then it'll also show you orphan VMDKs, powered off VMs, and idle VMs. So just going into that single dashboard, they do kind of track in line with the actual recommendations. Obviously, the recommendations are a little bit more robust, and they look differently just because it's just a list of recommendations, where this is a consolidated, here are your top VMs that are over allocated. And you can come in there and say, hey, it's got 4 CPUs. The average CPU is 5% usage. So my recommendations take it from 4 to 1. It will look at your peaks though. So, if your average is 20%, but you had spikes above 50%, it's not going to take that 4 and drop it to 1, because while that may work for your average, basically drop you down to that 25 range. Obviously you had spikes above 50, so or above 25, somewhere in there. So we're going to say, hey, take it to 2. So we're going to look at your spike and go, hey, I don't want to dip below your spike, even if your average was well underneath that. I think those are all the questions I've seen thrown my way.
Yeah,
for
and
Virtualization Manager.
I'll just add one thing about monitoring Azure workloads. So DPA can actually run. We have a very simple install process through the Azure Marketplace. It is a BYOL, so you need to already have licensed keys that you can use for those DPA instances running in Azure. But when DPA sees a database that's running in Azure, like Azure SQL database or Azure SQL managed instance, we actually add, just as you saw with the VM option demo, we add some additional information like DTUs, database throughput units, and things like that. So the product is cognizant of what's going on in Azure. So with that said, I would like to thank everyone for your time. We wanted to make this brief. Jared and I could have probably gone on for hours.
Yeah, 30 minutes is more challenging than a 1 hour.
Yeah, it's pretty challenging, but we know a lot of you are working remote, and your time is valuable. And certainly reach out to us if you want any more information on this. Again, thanks for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you, guys.